Hi, Naz Perez. I couldn't help but wonder. Hi, guys. Kelly, it's so lovely
Hi.
to meet you. Hi,
So nice to
Shal.
meet you.
Hey, what's going on, Nat? Nice to see you.
I'm, I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you, Shal. This movie's
Oh,
so sick.
thank
I mean,
you.
the both of you guys. You are my favorite writer director in this genre right now because I feel like no one explores the inner landscape as well as you do. And like from experience, our inner world is 10 times more horrific and inescapable than the external. But on top of that,
Thank you.
like I watch so many horror movies that lack so much character development where they like throw you in the middle of the movie and then something happens to the person and I'm like I don't really care if anything happens to this person, and then you have this character Valerie where I'm like I knew she worked at Waffle House. I'm like this is the character development that I have been searching for. I'm so proud. I'm so
Oh,
invested. And yeah, you guys
thank you.
slayed. I normally wouldn't start off by asking this question, but Kelly, Shal and I met at a party at my friend Jesse Israel's house, who now happens to be a keynote speaker. And I thought that is such an insane synchronicity that I have to start this conversation off with that because you could have told this story, Shal, through any occupation. So I need to know why motivational speaker.
I thought it was just a really cool way to show I like the idea that this thing can affect someone who really has it all together and someone who's kind of giving you all the answers. And knowing Jesse and knowing these other people who are on a stage trying to help people, but then also have all these other issues of their own that maybe they're not like fully dealing with. So I thought there was a good, there's just a really good irony there in the career choice. It's a good way also to have someone on stage, like just seeing the two sides of somebody. And also it's a much more dramatic fall from grace. And for me personally, I know Jesse and and I I'm not just, I'm not just being like wellness is dumb, but that's not the only angle. Obviously, there's some satire and maybe some criticism of it, but I have like, I
Right.
do buy into different aspects of that, and I have like seen sort of the good and the bad in that. So I just thought I could explore it from a way where I have, I like to at least write something. Ideally, it's just a lot easier to write something that I know a little bit about. It's just the
Yeah.
laziness. So that was also part of it.
Laziness and irony. I love it. It works
Yeah.
though too because it's not an occupation we often see be the lead character of a movie, which is why I love it. Kelly, your characters, you're so good as Val. Um, every character you played, whether it's like Rose in Star Wars or Raya, it's like you play these characters that are so brave and go up against just so brave in the face of like formidable obstacles. And I loved seeing you bring that into the horror genre. Is this your first horror film?
Um, yes, it's my first horror film. I had done a like one episode of a horror anthology series called Monsterland that was also on Hulu that was in the horror genre, but it was like a TV
Right,
thing.
right.
So yes, this is my first horror film. Yes.
I thought so. Oh my God, you slayed it. It was, I felt like you've just like been in this genre forever. And I kind of want to touch upon what Shal was just talking about, which is that irony of Valerie being this motivational speaker and she's teaching people how to take control of their lives. But in this story, she's the one that's like losing control. And I love it's so human, right? To see people who can't practice what they preach. It's almost like it's like witnessing your therapist telling someone to fuck off on the side of the street. It's so human. I was curious if there's any energetic paradox that you sort of live with when it comes to you and your work.
Yeah, I mean, I think absolutely. Like the amount of imposter syndrome that I have is very, very large. Um,
Mm.
but I feel like this sort of pressure that Val feels to project this idea that she has it all together when she doesn't is something that I think a lot of people can relate to because I think we live in a world that, doesn't allow space for mental health days or recognizing that people are dealing with a lot of things just being alive in this environment. Do you have a
Right.
sweater on?
A shiz sweater?
Big Wicked fan over here.
Oh
Wow.
my
Cool,
God,
cool, cool, cool,
yes.
cool, cool.
That's hilarious. I love you even more now.
So, Yeah, I forgot what I was saying because I got so excited about your
No,
sweater.
it's no, you're right, especially in this industry, right? Like we don't, there's so many things that we deal with, right? Like as directors, as
Yeah,
actors, as
yeah.
journalists, from a mental health standpoint. Which leads me to want to ask the both of you, in what ways did the energy of control manifest itself through your directing or through your acting?
Hmm.
Hmm. Kelly?
Yeah. Um, I will say with this one, I felt very much like Shal and I had a really good creative relationship, and also that the crew was wonderful, and I became really close with all of them. So I felt like um, there was an environment where I could play around and also be messy and gross and and also be in a process where it didn't feel like every take had to be a specific thing. And I think that that's such um, a special privilege to be afforded the ability to be like, hey, let's try something here. Let's do something different. And maybe it's going to be ugly, and ugly is okay. And so I think that doing this movie, because of the way we shot it, because it was 22 days, because my character was pretty much in every single scene, it was like we were working at such a rate that was almost like not afforded the privilege of being insecure. Like I was just like, we're
Mm,
going. And it allowed
mm,
me to give myself permission to just be messy in a way that I felt like I was letting go of some sort of control, if that makes sense.
yeah, and a testament to
Totally.
you, Shal, too, as a director. Do you have anything to say about the energy
Um,
of control manifesting itself?
oh, that was great. I'm trying to think about that. Yeah, I mean, I am a complete control freak when it comes to like putting everything together, but when it comes to the moment, like you really have to just trust the talented people you're working at to like do something incredible. And I just had so much, you see it right away. I've already, you know, Kelly's audition was incredible. Her work is incredible, so I knew she was going to bring that
Mm,
energy. But yeah, there were multiple times where we'd be the thing is you're working so fast, but there are some key scenes you have to need to plan this all out beforehand. There are some key scenes where I try to just give as much time as possible, but it got to a point sometimes where it would just be like we would be talking and Kelly would kind of look off and get quiet and she'd be like, let me try something. And then she would try something and it would be like wild and like you said, messy, but
mm,
that's usually what made the final take. Like in the mirror scene when she freaks out, that kind of just happened. In one of her monologues when Robbie isn't there, like a lot of the best takes actually happened where you've laid down the groundwork and you have an idea for it, but sometimes it's just about the actor um, I don't know, whatever process you did, Kelly, because you just kind of just did it, and it was magic and really powerful. So I think that just those are
mm.
like the most fun parts. The most fun parts on set are actually, for me at least, where I'm like I'm no longer in control at all, and I'm kind of just like watching something happen. Same when you're watching a movie that you made, and you just kind of like you get caught up in it. Like that's the best
Yeah.
feeling when you don't have any control over anything, and things are just kind of happening on their own. And that's like the magic of making movies for sure.
Yeah. When you're in full surrender to like the
Yeah,
flow and the
exactly.
art. That's like for all of us, right? And I loved
Yeah,
hearing that
100%.
you guys were able to achieve that behind the scenes, because the reason I asked that question is so often I find myself, if I was directing a movie about control, having this energy of control and being like, I'm making a movie about a control freak. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, a real life experience that I'm currently dealing with that I really related to in this film. And it's not even so much a question as much as a conversation for all of us. But I thought Vicious Cycles was like really fascinating, like the scratch itch cycle, because I currently have IBS and it's menacing. Like I'm always bloated. And what I'm trying to break is it's called the gut, I wrote it down. It's called the gut brain loop. And so before
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
I eat something, if I like think I'm going to be bloated, then I'll get bloated, but then that actual symptom makes it worse. And so then it's this loop that you can't break, which when I saw the scratch itch cycle, I was like, whoa, it's kind of wild to think about like the reaction to something making that thing worse and how horrific
Totally.
that can be.
Yeah. And it helps. Some people are stuck in those patterns like their entire lives. You can probably even think of someone in your life where you sort of expand that cycle of like destructive or pernicious behavior and how it like everything kind of feeds on itself it's like holistic terribleness and some level where you do one thing and it happens over and over again. And that was definitely just a big part of a lot. I think you can translate that into like a lot of the themes in the movie in terms of like some nagging thing that just keeps coming back and gets worse and worse, or just kind of like maintains like a sort of just like a splinter in your soul kind of deal, where it's just like always kind of there, and all the behavior that you're doing around it is just inflaming it and inflaming it. But yeah, totally vicious
Yeah.
cycle.
I love it. Yeah, the itching sound was so like bone chilling. I need to know how you made that sound.
The itching sound.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Foley. I didn't make it. Our sound team was really strong in sound department in LA, and they did a lot of different Foley stuff for that. And in terms of like in the mix, it was sort of like the two. I remember the two notes I usually had would be like turn the itching up and turn like the impact up. So if like people fall down or like something falls, like just turn all that shit up.
Mm.
Sometimes there's certain my philosophy of certain aspects of that, including sound design, is just like just go too far first, and then you can pull
And then
back if
bring
you
it
need to.
down.
But
Yeah.
I thought this is a movie where you like go too far all
Yeah.
the
Do
time
you,
and then bring it back a little bit.
do you know what they used to create the itching sound?
Um, I think they just itched on different surfaces. I think that was it. I
Okay,
think it
so
was actually on the
it was
head.
actual itching.
Yeah.
Okay,
And some
wow.
of it is the production
Sick.
sound. Some of it is just like accentuated because it does like when you get in the scalp, you can like really hear it. And I think when you're itch yourself, you can hear it more because it's closer to your ear. So you just get the mic like really close. And then you layer it
Yeah.
with a couple things and you make it a little bit wet. I think maybe you put like some water on it. You get a little bit like squishy. But
Ah!
yeah, yeah. Yummy. Yummy,
Yum, we
yummy.
love it. Okay. So I also wanted to ask, aside from the itching, about ants, because Control Freak was obviously the feature based off your short film Control from 2021, which is so good. And I remember when you were making Control, you had to do a pickup like with ants on your arm, and you used your own arm to get it. And I was curious, Shao, what you learned about ants and working with ants in Control that was helpful to know in the feature, whether practical or CGI.
I mean, Kelly, you remember our day with the ants? There's
Oh
nothing
my God.
practical about working with ants. It is so impractical. There's a couple shots of real ants in the movie, but most of it is all CGI. And I should have learned my lesson from those little bastards. They move so fast. Like, but we had like an ant wrangler. It was so silly because you have to freeze the ant and then you film and you kind of wait for it and then it starts moving. So we tried to do some of it practically, but I really wouldn't recommend it. It's a very hard animal to direct, that's for sure. So
Wait,
yeah.
I need to hear Kelly's perspective on that day you were laughing about with the ants.
Well, I just remember there was a day where we were putting ants on my actual body and the ant wrangler was there. First of all, the fact that there was an ant wrangler, I was like, whoa, I'm amazed by this. And then Shah was like, let me just do it because I don't want you to have to do this. And then so he, there was, remember we filmed that shot where the ant was also on your chest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I put on Kelly's ward, like put on the night gun over me because I was like, you don't want to get an ant on your like crawling up your face and stuff. I
Oh
just
my
slept in
God.
for one of the shots, but it
Yeah,
didn't
but
even make
this
the cut. I don't think.
such an interesting process because like the ant wrangler would like keep them like cool and kind of asleep and like in a sleep state. And then when they were ready, it was like they would put them on your body and for a moment they'd be kind of like napping and then they would yeah, it was wild.
Taking a little ant nap. Yeah.
That's so wild. I've never heard of an ant wrangler. I love when I learn about things like this through interview. That's amazing. Uh, Kelly, I wanted to ask you, actually, um, before I ask you, I want to ask the both of you just the idea of parasites, because there's like this uptick in trend on people wanting to rid of actual parasites in their bodies, right? Like everyone's looking up detoxes, liver flushes, cleanses. And a lot of people believe, including myself, that these parasites have consciousness. And I was curious, if you like Kelly, did you research or look into any of that in pre-pro? Shao, was that in any way a little bit of inspiration to this? And what do you guys think of that concept in general, that like actual parasites have consciousness?
Hmm. I don't know that I've heard it said that way before, that a parasite has consciousness. But I mean, that's definitely what's happening in the film, is that the parasite that she has definitely has a consciousness and has like a goal and a desire. Um, and I will say what you were talking about before, sort of this idea that people are interested in parasites as like a wellness thing. It's really, really interesting. I am going to be the first to say that I don't think I know enough about that
Mm.
industry, about like science, to say
Yeah.
what is and is not legit. But it's an interesting time, and it feels very relevant to the themes that we were exploring in this.
Yeah, totally. I've never thought about it like that at all either.
Oh,
Like an
wow.
actual parasite, like having a consciousness and like having that be on the wellness side. That seems like another version of this movie
Control
that's
freak
kind of
2.
fascinating. Yeah,
Yeah,
control freak
it's
too.
very meta because when you have parasites in your body, you can be distorted and brain fog and like there's actual symptoms that come from it. So I thought that was interesting. I wanted to ask the both of you before I wrap up, if this because there's this Nosferatu thing kind of going on between Valerie and this parasite that I was like really into. I don't know if you guys saw
Mm.
Nosferatu,
I
but I
haven't seen
wanted
it.
to.
I'm
Oh my
dying to
God,
see
you
it.
have to watch
Dying,
it, Kelly,
dying to
especially
see
after
it.
starring in this. You need to watch it tonight.
Okay, I got
Um, if this story were told from the parasite's point of view, what would it think about its relationship with Valerie?
Yeah. Kelly, you want to take a shot? I'll say answer afterwards.
yeah.
Cheers.
First of all, I don't think that a parasite or like a villain in any way ever thinks they're the villain. So I don't think that they
Right.
would think that they were doing anything wrong. I think that they would think that they were helping her, which is essentially, at the end of the movie, that's what Sanchi is saying. Sanchi's saying, like, basically, I don't want to spoil it. I'm trying to like speak vaguely, but
Yeah.
you're it's basically telling Val that she can't work through this. She has to just end everything essentially, or hurt herself to a point where like that's the only way to destroy this thing that's part of her. Um, and yeah, I think maybe Sanchi's perspective would be that they're helping people in a weird, fucked up way. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know, Shao.
Totally. I like that. I like all of that. And I like that you brought that question, because there was a lot of like I wanted the Sanchi to be kind of weirdly maternal. It was actually like wanted it to be
Mm.
even more feminine. Like I wanted to have this kind of like feminine, maternal, but also like just a very
Mm.
violating, like out in your space perspective, and have it kind of like a sensualness to the way that it touched her. Like it wasn't. I didn't want it to be too like until later on. You know what I mean? It's kind of like
Yeah.
caressing and whispering, and it does have this like very like parasitic uh mom vibe or something. And I think its
Hmm.
perspective is pretty terrible, but I think it feels more aligned, and it just wants the abyss for both of them. It just wants to taste the abyss because that's its goal for both of them. And I think it does feel more aligned. And but yeah, that was definitely like I'd love to explore it even more. Like it is there is something kind of almost like erotic too about it. It's like maternal and erotic. It's really the
Hmm.
psychosexual like fucked upness to it that I thought
Yeah.
was important. That it's like, and even just like I guess it's a super spoiler, but even like a finger in a hole. You know what I mean? Like there's just something kind of like sexual about all this in a really
Yeah.
twisted sort of way. Like there's a lot of layers to it that I thought would make it way grosser and scarier if it was not just sort of like this very it's not super aggressive, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, no,
It's
I
sort of
like
like,
that it felt more less masculine and more seducing, right? Like which
yeah,
is what the
exactly.
feminine would do. I love that. I have a million more questions for you guys, but I have to wrap up. But I just want to thank you. Sangchi was so interesting to me, Shao. What a like brilliant character. And I went down a massive wormhole on the internet of
Mm,
the Hungry Ghost Festival in Vietnam and
mm.
all those things. So maybe we'll get to talk about that another day. But
I
congratulations on
love
the
that.
movie. I'm so proud of the both of you, and it's so good. I can't wait for audiences to see it.
Thank you
Awesome.
so
Thanks so
much. It was
much.
nice to meet you.
So good. Yeah,
So
so good
lovely
chatting.
meeting
Yeah.
you, Kelly. Bye, Shal. Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Love you.
everyone. Thank you for having me.